Hello friends, my name is Lauren and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we're just gonna have a little discussion. I don't know if you've been following up with what I've been posting recently on my channel within the last month, or I've just been looking around for new releases. The fifth book in the School for Good and Evil series, it will be 6 books in total, but the fifth one just released a couple weeks ago. So in preparation, I read the first 4 books and I read that book. So for today's video, I wanted to give all my thoughts and opinions on the series because overall, I have to say I did enjoy the series. I would recommend it, but there are a few things I want to go over with this series, so I thought I'd make this video to just give some overall thoughts, and yeah. So let's just grab this. Alright, so, oh my god, they're falling. So, before I jump into this video, I'm not sure how many spoilers I'm going to be saying. To be honest, I do forget most of the events in these books already. Don't you ever have that happen, like when you read a story and then like you try to explain things about it and then you realize that you like forget everything? So yeah. However, I do have reviews on Goodreads, which I will low-key be referencing during this video. So if you want to hear all my written thoughts and that kind of thing, be sure to check out there. I'll link it below in the description. So we're just gonna jump right on in with book number 1 for the School for Good and Evil series, which, as it makes sense, is The School for Good and Evil. For those of you that don't know, The School for Good and Evil follows our 2 protagonists, Agatha and Sophie. Basically, Agatha wears black, she hates people in general, she lives alone with her mother in a graveyard, like that kind of thing. And Sophie, like, she loves pink and dresses and dreams of princesses and princes and all that kind of stuff. She values doing good deeds, and that is kind of a gist of who they are. So basically, more or less to say, they are unlikely friends. Basically, their town, like, you can't leave this town. No one seems to want to leave, but let's say you go through the forest to leave, you always end up back at the town. So there's no real way for them to leave, so they're kind of just stuck where they are. However, for the past 200 years, every 4 years, 2 kids were taken, one seemingly good and one seemingly evil, to enroll at the School for Good and Evil. And Sophie dreams of going to the School for Good. She thinks that's where she belongs. She'll have her whole fairy tale life that she pictured there. And so she really wants to get taken, and Agatha just wants to keep her friends safe. However, big surprise here, they are the ones that get taken, and so everyone thinks that Sophie's going to the School for Good and Agatha goes to the School for Evil. However, who knows what's going to happen along this magical fairy tale. The School for Good and Evil basically teaches students there either evil traits or good traits depending on which school you go to, and the better you are as a student there, the more likely your own fairy tale will be written. And so it's really cool in that kind of regard. And so overall, I did enjoy the story concept of this book, but there was a big thing in this book that I did not like, so I ended up giving this book a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I know, it's bad, but I do have good things to say about this book. So I'm having trouble recommending this series because all the other books in this series I really did enjoy. This was the only one that I was like, meh on, and that was because for the first half of the book, I thought that the messaging and themes and just overall like characters, I thought they weren't that great. I thought they were really flat. There wasn't much like about them. There wasn't anything changing from like their whole like perspectives as the book goes on, so I found that kind of boring. And also, this is a middle grade book, meaning it's meant for age 9 to 12 years old, and so I thought a lot of the messaging in here, particularly for the girls, was very like bad. Like, there's no other way to put it. And I know fairy tales tend to use a lot of stereotypes, but I felt this book went a little over the limit, and so I didn't know like how good messaging this would be for people of that age. However, as a story concept idea, and if I was reading it now and just bypassed it, like just looking for a good story, I would really enjoy it. Just I think from like the reviewer standpoint, I think 2.5 stars, maybe 3. I'm not sure, but that's my opinion on this book. That's why I'm having trouble recommending the series, because I'm like, I want you to read it and fall in love with the story and the characters and everything, and also to see what happens next. However, this book was the only one I did not enjoy as much, so yeah. So my final rating on this is 2.5 stars. I've kind of been going back and forth between 2.5 stars and 3 stars, just depending on how I feel, but I think 2.5 stars is how I feel about it. I'm not 100% sure entirely, but I would recommend this series if you think the rest of this series is something you'd want to read, because this is a cool story concept. I love how we see like the fairy tale forming and the contrast of good and evil, and how it just kind of dives into those 2 factors of story like so well. So I did really enjoy that. So maybe I would recommend it. Just don't look into the stereotype stuff too much. Like, I don't know how else to say it, but like overall I liked it, but like it could have been better. Next, we have The School for Good and Evil, the second one, and it is called A World Without Princes. And this book I ended up giving a 3.5 out of 5 stars because I liked the story more, I liked the development more. The only thing is that why I didn't give this like a higher ranking is because rather than the first book having a lot of negative stereotypes in all, specifically towards girls, but and boys as well, it had a bad perception of boys in this book. Not for the whole thing, mostly just for a small part. It wasn't as in-depth as the other book, but I felt there was some negative stuff in this book as well. So just from that regard, I did not give it a 5-star or 4-star in that range. However, I did think the overall story and characters was better than it was in the last book. Hence, I gave this a higher ranking due to that. If you finished the first book and enjoyed it, would I recommend the second book? I would. I think the characters we meet in this and that we get to see just really like elevate the story entirely. And I also think we see a lot of characters in this book that leads down to later in the series. I'm not going to say anything else more than that, but you'll hear it in the rest of the video, potentially maybe. But this book I really did enjoy. I did love the development from every single character in this book. I thought it was really like presented well and made sense, and everyone seemed to have like their motives in check, whether it was good or bad, like whether it made them a better person or worse person, like you could see that progression. And so I really liked that and just helped to build on characters for like the books to come, and also just so we can learn more about our characters and fall in love with them even more. So I did really enjoy that, and I also thought it was really magical and had different twists and turns throughout the whole story. Like just when you thought it would come to an end, like there was something else there that would keep you wanting more and to learn more. So I enjoyed this book, and nothing else really more to say about that, but I really enjoyed it. And if you read the first one and want to read the second one, I would recommend it. It's really good. Overall, I really like it. And yeah. Next book. Next, we have the third book in the School for Good and Evil series called The Last Ever After. This series was mostly supposed to be a trilogy, but ended up having another trilogy after that, if you want to say. I'll get into that a little bit later though, but this was supposed to be the finale of the series, hence I don't know if you can tell, this is like a lot of pages. I think it's like it's like close to 650, I believe, in pages. But yeah, overall for this book, this was actually my favorite in the series until I read one of the other books in the series, but you have to wait to see which one it is. This book I really did enjoy, and I gave 4 out of 5 stars because I liked all the different events we saw in the story from the beginning, middle, and end. I liked how there was like small subplots. I liked the new characters we got to meet, and I liked how they worked together, the new and old characters, and just all that kind of stuff there. I just loved seeing the dynamic between the two, the differences between the two, and just seeing how not only there's like just the school, but also the world around the school as well, because no world just has a school and that's it. There's things that go on around it, so I really enjoyed the in-depth look at that, and also just like there was so much adventure and like love, and relationships were tested and all that kind of stuff, and so I really enjoyed that. I liked how, as I just said, the bonds were like tested to see who belonged with who and that kind of thing, and so this book definitely did a really good job of diving into all of that, so hence I really think it deserves a 4 out of 5 stars. The reason I didn't give it a 4.5 or 5 stars is because I don't think I'd be going on and on and on about this book, about how you must read this series just so you can read this book. Overall, I thought it was really good and a good conclusion to the first trilogy in this series. Next, we're on to the 4th book. It is called The School for Good and Evil: Quests for Glory. Now this is the first book in the Camelot years, so it is in the same universe, and it's basically a continuation from the last series, so it is known as book 4. However, it is the first book in the Camelot trilogy as well. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. Again, kind of the same things I've already said for the last books, but I liked the settings and the magical stuff and how the ending really sets you up for the next book. I loved that. This ending, this cliffhanger, like, oh my goodness, like it just keeps you wanting more so fast, and thankfully the 5th book is now out, so you don't have to wait anymore. But I loved this book so much, and the ending, even though it kind of leaves you with no hope in the world, I loved how it was set up and how everything came together in the end, whether it was for better or worse. So I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The only reason I did not give it a 4 stars or higher is because I did not see any progression with one of our main characters, and I also did not like some of the writing in this book. Obviously, we are at book 4 in the series, so I feel like the author should have a pretty good understanding of the characters, and whether it's just because they want to save more of the development to the end of the story, so like towards the end of the trilogy, I thought we could have seen a little bit of something, even if it was getting worse. I just kind of saw like the same kinds of things, so basically the character would react to something, be sad about it, but then continue being the same throughout the series. I thought since this character had so many like dramatic like things happen to them, and also smaller things as well, something should have changed, but I didn't really see that very much. And then I also thought there was a lot of obvious foreshadowing in this book. Maybe it was because I've read this book before, but I just really saw it and I thought that it was noticeable as well. And also my friend who'd read this book for the first time also noticed it, so I'm not sure it's just me. So just because of those two things, I thought it deserved a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Again, as I've said with other things, I liked the magic, adventure in the world. I just really liked it. Just a small few things are what brought it down on my list for this book. Now, the 5th book in the series. This came out on March 5th, 2019, so just a couple of weeks ago, and oh my goodness, this book is amazing. It is called A Crystal of Time, and it's so good. Like, I don't even have anything bad to say about this book because this was my favorite in the series. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars because maybe it was just because it was a new content, I don't know, but I'm hoping to reread this maybe in like a year or something, or maybe even when the next book comes out just to remember everything that happened. But this book was so good. I was looking so hard for foreshadowing, and something that I've noticed in all these books is that there's a lot of foreshadowing in the first chapter for something that's going to be really important later on down the road. So I looked for foreshadowing in the first chapter and I was like, I mean, there could be something here, but I don't really know. But it didn't dawn on me until I actually got the answer handed to me on what was actually happening. And just so many small things in here made this book so amazing. And I'm just gonna say, like, all these old characters that we had are very important in this book. Not even very important, but they play a little bit of a role, and it's amazing to see how old characters, our favorite characters, and newer characters are like tied together and how everything's kind of intertwined. I loved this book so much. Honestly, the series is worth it just to read this book. Like, it was so good. I don't know if it's just me, but I really do want to reread it just to make sure my thoughts are in place, but I really did enjoy it. Like, I don't even have anything bad to say about this book. I just loved every single thing, and I also thought towards the end, one of the characters that I had a problem with in the last book kind of fixed itself, and there actually was development in this book, and also the writing problem that I had in the last book also fixed itself. So there's no problems in this book. I just loved it so much. I love the story, characters, everything, and I'm so excited for the next book and the last book to come out. So the next and last book are one and the same, but I think the ending of this book was amazing. Like, something I've noticed in all the other books, other than the third one, was that there was a big cliffhanger that just kind of left you wanting to know what happened next. This one, however, is the first book that left with a cliffhanger, but left with hope.
Hope. Hope. It is the only thing stronger than fear.
So I'm really excited to see this like epic showdown kind of book for the last one, which I'm hoping is somehow even better than this book. So overall, I love this book. So overall thoughts on the series, would I recommend it, all that kind of stuff. Overall, I would say yes, I would recommend it, but if you're also like 9-10 years old, I would not recommend it just because the first book has so many stereotypes in it, and unless you're able to look past that and just see the actual story and how that story needs those stereotypes to actually really unfold to its like best degree, I would not recommend it. So maybe if you're like a slightly older reader in that regard, so like 11 and up, 12 and up, depending on how like mature that person is, whatever, I would recommend it. So as someone who's 16, I really enjoyed this story. I thought the development in the world was really good. I overall liked the story, and obviously the stereotypes in this book aren't really going to impact me because I know I can see above that. But just to be like cautious of someone who is not able to do that, I would not recommend this series just in the fact that there are a bunch of stereotypes in the first half of the first book. I'm not sure how good of a message that would be there, but as I've already said, I really liked the series. So if you like fairy tales, magic stuff, interesting romances that will be tested over the course of literally forever, which I absolutely loved, I would recommend this series. I thought it was so good, how it explores new ideas in each book, whether it's good and evil, boys and girls, new and old. I really loved all of that. There's so much adventure, like just how so many themes are conveyed. I loved it so much. So overall, I would still say this is one of my favorite series of all time, with a little minor note in the first book, but it was really good, and I really see how the progression in the series just keeps getting basically better and better and better. I loved it, and if you've read it too, I hope you love it as well, and honestly, I really liked it. There's not much else I can say about it, but I just want to put my thoughts out there for any of you that were wondering about how I felt about the series. In all, I'm really excited for the 6th book to come out. I'm not sure when it's going to come out though, probably in like 2021, because the author said they were like 34% done the book a couple weeks ago, so by the time they finish it, go through all like the revisions and the publication and all that kind of stuff, who knows how long we're gonna be waiting. But I am excited for the 6th book to see everything that happens and how this series will finally close off. So that's really all I have to say about the series. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and comment down below if you've read this series, which book was your favorite, why or why not, all that kind of stuff. Let me know if you have any questions for me about this series. I'll be happy to answer them. And that is everything I have to say about this series for today. As I've said many times, I really enjoyed it, and I will see you guys very soon for another video. So until then, bye.